Nia Adesina was the kind of daughter every parent wished for, hardworking, quiet, and dependable. At 26, she worked as an accountant in Accra, Ghana. Her life wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. Every month, she paid the rent, bought groceries, and even helped her younger sister, Tara, with her school fees. While Tara, 22, spent her time chasing social media fame, taking selfies, posting dance videos, and dreaming of luxury, Nia was the one keeping the family's world from falling apart. When their father lost his job at the port, things got worse. Bills piled up, and the house felt heavier with every passing day. Nia didn't complain. Instead, she found a way. She started doing freelance bookkeeping online after her regular job. Night after night, she sat under the dim yellow light of her old laptop, her eyes tired but her spirit unbroken. Sometimes, her mother would peek into her room and say softly, "You're our strength, Nia. One day we'll repay you." Nia always smiled, believing that love was repayment enough. Then one quiet evening, while returning from work, she heard her parents whispering in the living room. "Tara got accepted for the design program in Europe," her father said, his voice filled with both pride and worry. "But how can we afford the visa and ticket?" Her mother replied confidently, "We'll manage. God will provide." From the doorway, Nia smiled to herself. She was genuinely happy for her sister. "God will provide," she repeated silently, comforted by the thought that everyone would pitch in to make Tara's dream come true. But what Nia didn't know, what her heart couldn't imagine, was that when her parents said God will provide, the God they were talking about wasn't in heaven. It was her. And soon, she would learn just how much that faith was going to cost her. A week after that night, Nia came home from work and found her mother waiting for her at the table with 2 cups of tea. Her mother spoke gently, almost too gently. "Nia, you said you were saving for your house deposit, right?" Nia smiled proudly. "Yes. I've got about 58,000 Ghanaian cedis saved now." It was the money she had been putting aside for years. Every late night, every skipped outing, every bit of discipline was finally adding up to her dream of owning a small apartment. Her father walked in, rubbing his forehead like a man carrying the weight of the world. "Your sister's opportunity. It's something we can't ignore," he began. "The design program in Europe. It's once in a lifetime." Nia's heart sank. She already knew where this was going. Her father continued, "We thought maybe you could lend us something. Just a loan. We'll pay you back once Tara settles there." A heavy silence filled the room. Nia's chest felt tight. That money was her future, the small piece of peace she'd worked years for. But then she looked at her parents' faces, tired and desperate, and at the photo of Tara on the wall, smiling, carefree, dreaming big. After a long pause, Nia nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll help." Her mother's face lit up instantly. "Oh, Nia, God will bless you for this," she said, wrapping her arms tightly around her daughter. Her father sighed with relief, patting her back. But as Nia stood there, her stomach twisted. Something about their happiness made her uneasy, like she was giving away more than just money. That night, after dinner, she sat on her bed, staring at her phone for a long time. Her finger hovered over the transfer button. 45,000 Ghanaian cedis, almost everything she had saved. She whispered to herself, "It's just money. Family is more important," and pressed send. Her mother came into the room, hugged her tightly, and whispered, "You've done something God will bless you for." Tara walked past, scrolling through her phone, barely looking up. "Thanks, sis," she said, her tone flat and distracted. 2 weeks later, the house buzzed with excitement. Tara was flying to Europe. Suitcases were everywhere, her parents taking pictures, neighbors stopping by to say goodbye. Her father proudly said to everyone, "My daughter, the one going abroad." His smile was wide and full of pride. Nia carried Tara's suitcase to the taxi, sweat on her forehead and tears in her eyes, not from sadness but from exhaustion. As the car pulled away, she waved, whispering, "Take care, Tara." Her parents were laughing, waving happily. Nia smiled too, trying to ignore the ache in her chest. She told herself she had done the right thing, that she had sacrificed for love, for family, for something bigger. But 3 weeks later, one ordinary evening, she opened her bank app and froze. Her balance blinked on the screen. 3.40 Ghanaian cedis. Her hands trembled. She refreshed the page again and again. The number didn't change. In that moment, her heart sank as she realized the truth. Her sacrifice had just turned into her loss. It was past midnight when Nia finally opened her laptop. She had just finished a long day of work and wanted to check her savings, the account she'd been building for years. Her eyes blinked as the numbers loaded on the screen. Balance, 3.40 Ghanaian cedis. She froze. That couldn't be right. She refreshed the page. Again. The same number stared back at her, 3.40 Ghanaian cedis. Her chest tightened. Her palms turned cold. She scrolled through the transaction history with shaking hand. Line after line showed huge withdrawals. 58,000 Ghanaian cedis gone over 3 days. Every single one marked transfer, household account. No, this has to be a mistake, she whispered, her throat dry. She checked again, hoping it was a glitch, but the numbers didn't lie. Her life savings had vanished. Without thinking, she ran to her parents' room, her heart pounding so hard she could barely speak. Mom, Dad, my savings, it's gone. Her mother avoided her eyes. Her father sighed, sitting up slowly. We used it, Nia. For a moment, Nia just stared at him, waiting for him to say it was a joke. You used it? She finally choked out. That was my life savings, my future, my home deposit. Her father looked tired. You're young, Nia. You'll make more money. Your sister needed help. This was her big chance. Nia shook her head, tears streaming down her face. So I work 2 jobs, I give up my sleep, my dreams, and you just take it? So Tara can live my dream. Her mother's voice cut in sharply, cold and final. Tara will represent this family better than you ever could. She's talented. She'll make us proud. Those words hit Nia harder than anything. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about love, or the lack of it. She stood there, trembling, realizing the truth she'd been too afraid to face. They didn't see her as a daughter anymore. She was their provider, their backup plan, their personal safety net. Without saying another word, Nia turned and walked to her room. She closed the door, sat on her bed, and stared at her laptop screen, 3.40 Ghanaian cedis still glowing faintly. In that silence, her heart broke completely. Not because her account was empty, but because her family's love was too. For weeks, the house felt like a stranger's place. Nia stopped talking to her parents unless it was absolutely necessary. She ate her meals in silence, often alone in her room, and spent her nights working quietly, pretending everything was fine. But every night, when the lights were off and no one could see her, she cried, not just from anger, but from the deep ache of betrayal. The only thing that seemed alive in the house was her laptop. One night, while scrolling through social media, Nia froze. There was Tara, standing in front of the Eiffel Tower, dressed in expensive clothes, her smile wide and perfect. New beginnings, globe showing Europe, Africa, #blessed, #proud Ghanaian. The comments were endless. Wow, you're an inspiration. Your parents must be so proud. Nia just stared at the screen. Her eyes burned, her chest heavy with a mix of pain and rage. The same parents who had emptied her account were now being praised for supporting their daughter abroad. Every time she saw Tara's new pictures, the cafes, the landmarks, the fancy clothes, something inside Nia cracked a little more. She thought of all the nights she had skipped dinner to save money, all the weekends she had worked instead of resting, and how easily her sacrifices had been spent without a second thought. Then came Sunday. At church, Nia sat in the second row, quiet and small, when her father stood up proudly and said, "Our daughter Tara is now studying in Europe, all by God's grace." The whole church clapped. Smiles, cheers, praise, everyone celebrating the family's success. Nia forced a smile, nodding politely as if her heart wasn't breaking. Inside, she was screaming. God's grace, she thought bitterly. No, it was my money. After the service, a few church members came up to her and said, "You must be so proud of your sister." Nia just smiled weakly. "Yes, very proud," she lied. Days passed, and she buried herself in work. But her sadness followed her everywhere, in her emails, her spreadsheets, even her coffee breaks. One afternoon at the office, her colleague Kojo noticed her quiet face. "You look like someone carrying the world on your back," he said softly. She gave a small, tired smile. "It's just family stuff," she replied, trying not to cry. Kojo nodded, his eyes kind. "Sometimes," he said, "family is where the heaviest lies live." That sentence stayed with her the whole evening. When she got home, she sat in front of her laptop again, the same laptop she used to build everyone else's dream. But this time it was different. She opened a new document, took a deep breath, and whispered to herself, "No more silence." With trembling hands, she began typing, searching, planning, determined to rebuild her life, one click at a time. After everything that happened, something inside Nia shifted. The girl who once gave everything without question had finally learned her lesson, the hard way. She stopped giving her parents money completely. No more rent help, no more small loans. Nothing. At first, her parents didn't like it. Her mother would sigh loudly whenever Nia walked in. "You've changed," she said one evening, shaking her head. "Success is making you proud." Nia looked at her calmly and replied, "No, Mama. Betrayal made me careful." Her voice wasn't angry, just tired, honest, and done pretending. From that moment, she poured all her energy into herself. She left her old office job and started freelancing full-time, working for international clients who respected her skills and paid her worth. She signed up for online business classes late at night, learning about finance, investments, and entrepreneurship. Her notebook filled up with new ideas, goals, and plans, this time, all for her future. Slowly, things began to change. Nia started managing accounts for small firms across Africa. Her name began to spread quietly in business circles. The young Ghanaian accountant who never misses a detail. She worked long hours but with a new kind of fire inside her. Every project she completed, every payment she received, was a reminder that she didn't need anyone's permission to succeed. By the end of the year, her savings had grown, not just back to what was stolen, but more than double. She looked at her account one night and smiled, tears filling her eyes. She had rebuilt everything they took from her, and more. The next morning, she walked into the bank and opened a new business account under her own name, Adesina Financial Solutions. Her name, her company, her power. For the first time, she felt proud to see herself as the brand. She wasn't just someone's daughter or sister anymore. She was her own foundation. Meanwhile, Tara's once glamorous life in Europe wasn't as perfect as it looked online. Her calls to Nia became less frequent, and when she did call, it was always the same tone, desperate and polite. "Nia, can you please send me some money for rent? I'll pay you back soon," she said one afternoon, her voice shaky. Nia didn't hesitate. "Sorry, Tara. I'm not your bank," she said softly. There was no anger, no bitterness, just truth. Then she hung up and leaned back in her chair, feeling an incredible calm wash over her. For the first time in years, she breathed deeply, a full, free breath that wasn't heavy with guilt or pressure. This was her awakening, not loud or dramatic, but powerful. The kind that comes when you finally realize you don't owe anyone your peace, your money, or your soul. It was almost midnight when Nia's phone started ringing. The number flashing on the screen made her heart skip. It was her father. He never called her that late. Something felt wrong. She answered quickly. "Hello, Papa?" His voice was trembling. "Nia, your sister's in trouble." Her stomach tightened. "What happened?" "Tara's visa expired," he said in a shaky breath. "She's stuck over there. They're threatening to deport her if she doesn't pay the renewal fees soon." Nia sat up in bed, her mind spinning. "How much does she need?" she asked quietly. There was a long pause, then he said, 60000. For a moment, there was silence. Then Nia let out a short, bitter laugh, the kind that comes from pain too deep to cry out. 60000, she repeated slowly. "That's almost the same amount you took from me." Her father didn't respond right away. Then she heard him sigh, exhausted and ashamed. "Please, Nia, help your sister. You know we can't do this without you." Nia closed her eyes. The same guilt she used to feel started to rise inside her. But this time, something stronger pushed it down. She thought about those long nights she cried alone, about the silence, the betrayal, the way her parents had chosen Tara over her like she didn't matter. She took a deep breath and said softly, "You already helped her, Papa, with my money." Her father's voice broke slightly. "Nia, please." But Nia shook her head, tears rolling down her cheeks. "No, Papa. Not again. I can't keep saving people who wouldn't think twice before taking everything." There was nothing but silence on the other end. Then he hung up. Nia sat there in the dark, phone still in her hand, her heart pounding. For years, she had been the family's safety net, the dependable daughter, the fixer, the provider. But at that moment, she finally realized she didn't owe anyone her peace. She opened her laptop, the same one she had used to rebuild her life from scratch. Her cursor blinked on the screen, and for a second, she thought of checking Tara's messages, but she didn't. She just closed the lid gently. That night, for the first time, Nia didn't cry herself to sleep. Instead, she prayed quietly, not for Tara, not for money, not even for things to go back to the way they were. She prayed for strength. Strength to stay firm. Strength to choose herself. Because this time, her power wasn't in giving, it was in letting go. After everything that had happened, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the silence, Nia made a decision. She would never let pain define her again. Instead, she would build something out of it. Something lasting. Something hers. So, she threw herself completely into her work. Every morning, she woke up before sunrise, brewed her coffee, and opened her laptop with a new kind of energy. Her small freelancing hustle was now her full-time business, Adesina Financial Solutions. With each client she took on, she gave nothing less than excellent. Her precision, honesty, and attention to detail started to attract attention. Clients loved working with her. They told their friends. Word spread quickly around Accra. If you want your books done right, go to Nia Adesina. In just a few months, her inbox was full. She could barely keep up with the requests. So, she hired her first assistant, then a second. Soon after, she was interviewing accountants and analysts, forming a small but powerful team that shared her values. By the time Nia turned 28, her company wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. She had a bright office downtown with glass walls, warm lighting, and a view of the busy streets of Accra below. Her employees respected her deeply. They often said, "Madam Nia doesn't just lead with rules, she leads with grace." One morning, as she was reviewing client reports, her phone buzzed. It was an email from a local business magazine. The subject line read, "Feature request. From betrayal to boardroom, The Accountant Who Built Her Empire Alone. Nia froze for a moment, then smiled. The title felt almost surreal, like they had read her soul. The interview came out 2 weeks later, and the magazine sold out across the city. Her face was on the cover, confident, calm, and glowing with quiet power. When friends and former colleagues tagged her online, she didn't repost or brag. She didn't even comment. She didn't need to. The old Nia might have looked for validation, for people to finally say, "We're proud of you." But the woman she had become no longer needed applause to feel worthy. She sat at her office desk one evening, the magazine open in front of her. The headline caught her eye again, From Betrayal to Boardroom. She ran her fingers over the words and smiled softly, not out of pride, but peace. Her eyes wandered to the window, where the sun was setting over the city she had rebuilt her life in. Everything she had lost, she had regained, multiplied, purified, and entirely her own. Nia didn't post it online. She didn't need to prove anything. Her success already spoke the loudest language there was: resilience. 2 years had passed since that painful phone call. Life had moved on for Nia. Her business was stable, her team had grown, and peace finally lived in her heart. She didn't think much about her family anymore. The hurt had faded into something softer, something like acceptance. But one hot afternoon, as she was finishing a client report, her assistant knocked gently on the office door. "Ma'am, there's someone here to see you." Nia looked up. "Who?" The assistant hesitated. "She says her name is Tara." The name froze Nia in her chair. For a moment, she couldn't move. Then she nodded slowly. "Let her in." When Tara walked in, Nia barely recognized her. Gone was the bright, confident girl who used to post pictures from Paris, posing in cafes and writing captions like, "New Beginnings Globe Showing Europe Africa #blessed." Now she stood there in wrinkled clothes, her hair unkempt, her eyes red and tired. Her hands trembled slightly as she spoke. "They sent me back," Tara whispered. "My visa expired and I couldn't find work. I have nothing, Nia. Nothing." Nia sat back quietly, studying her sister's face. The same face their parents had once praised endlessly. The same sister who had taken everything she worked for. For a few seconds, the room was heavy with silence. Finally, Nia spoke softly. "You're still my sister, Tara. That will never change." Tara's lips quivered. "I don't deserve your kindness." Nia shook her head. "This isn't kindness. It's reality. You'll have to rebuild yourself the way I did." Tara blinked in confusion. "How?" Nia opened her laptop, scrolled through her employee list, and pointed to an open position. "There's a junior assistant role available. It's not glamorous, but it's honest work. If you want it, it's yours." Tara looked at her, surprised. "You'd hire me? After everything?" "Yes," Nia said calmly. "Not out of pity, but because it's time you learn what responsibility feels like." There was a long pause. Then slowly, Tara nodded. "I'll take it." Nia smiled faintly. "Good. You start Monday." As Tara turned to leave, she stopped at the door and looked back. "Nia, thank you." Nia simply nodded. "Just do the work." When the door closed behind her, Nia leaned back in her chair. For the first time, she didn't feel anger, pain, or revenge. She just felt free. The tables had turned, quietly, completely, and without a single cruel word. Now, the sister who had once taken everything from her would learn to rebuild from the ground. And Nia, the sister who had once been forgotten, would teach her, not through punishment, but through example. In that moment, Nia realized something powerful. Winning wasn't about revenge. It was about rising, and never looking down with hate. It happened on a bright Saturday morning. Nia was at her office, going through some reports, when her receptionist walked in and said quietly, "Ma'am, your parents are here to see you." Nia froze for a moment. It had been almost 3 years since they last truly talked. Her heart beat faster, but she stayed calm. "Send them in," she said softly. A few seconds later, her parents walked through the glass doors, looking smaller than she remembered. Her father's hair had turned grayer, and her mother's confident posture was gone. They looked around the office slowly, their eyes taking in the glass walls, the buzzing staff, and the nameplate on her desk that read, Nia Adesina, founder and CEO, Adesina Financial Solutions. Her father's voice trembled. "You built all this?" Nia nodded, meeting his eyes. "Yes. With what was left after you emptied my account." The room went silent. The air felt heavy, not with anger anymore, but truth. Her father looked away, shame written all over his face. Her mother opened her mouth, then closed it again, her hands twisting nervously. Finally, her mother whispered, her voice breaking, "We were wrong, Nia. We thought Tara was our pride. But you were our backbone all along." Nia stared at her mother quietly. The words she had longed to hear for years didn't bring joy, just a strange, quiet peace. She smiled faintly. "Sometimes," she said softly, "you have to lose family to find yourself." Her father sighed deeply, eyes glistening. "We didn't understand what we were doing back then. We were blinded by what we thought success looked like." Nia nodded. "I know. But what you did taught me something more valuable than money. It taught me how to stand alone. Tears rolled down her mother's cheeks. Can you forgive us? She asked. Nia took a deep breath. Forgiveness isn't a switch. It's a process. But today, I think it's starting. Her father reached out his hand, hesitantly. For a moment, Nia just looked at it. Then she stood up and shook it, firm, calm, and without bitterness. There were no dramatic hugs, no emotional collapse. Just quiet understanding, the kind that only comes after years of pain and growth. Her mother glanced around the office once more, her voice barely above a whisper. We're proud of you, Nia. She smiled, her eyes soft. Thank you. I just hope next time, you'll be proud without comparing. They nodded, and for the first time in years, they sat together, talking, laughing awkwardly, slowly mending what was broken. The healing didn't start with apologies or tears. It started with honesty, raw and real. And as her parents left that day, Nia watched them go, her heart lighter than it had been in years. She whispered to herself, the room filled with applause, the sound rising like thunder, not just for success, but for survival, healing, and the power of starting again. Maybe we're finally learning what family really means.